The result was truly surprising when John, a genius born into the Jin family, one of the top 5 families in South Korea with exceptional talents, was defeated by an unknown nobody in the selection for one of the top 3 hunting training institutes in South Korea, Valhalla. This place is renowned for its extremely high competition rate, 500 to 1. Every year, countless hunters aspire to wear the Valhalla title, but no more than 150 people can graduate with this title. The competition has been fierce since the beginning. Yoo So-yeon has a mana level comparable to that of high school students at the age of 10. She could channel mana into her sword to enhance the weapon at the age of 13, and by 16, she had challenged the entire Jushin family and defeated them all. But these are just the things written in her records. Some say that Joo Se-yeon could even communicate with the constellation guardians of her family, and that is why the Jushin family has such high expectations for her. The reason why South Korea has 5 families is because the constellation guardians are linked to each house. Normally a hunter would receive a blessing or sign a contract with a constellation. However, the guardians of the 5 families are different. The Jushin family is known for its sword god. The Jiangsan family is known for its saint of war. The Choijin family has the Tao emperor. The Osun family is known for its king of power. And the Do-juan family is famous for its god of archery. Members of these 5 families who receive blessings from their respective constellations have talents and abilities that far surpass others. There is a significant difference between receiving a blessing and making a direct connection. Making a direct connection with a guardian god is like signing a direct contract with them. If this is the case, then Yoo So-yeon is indeed a genius. But no matter how much of a genius she is in front of Kim Joo-hyuk, she is nothing more than a mosquito. Everyone thought the match would be intense and that Joo Se-yeon would defeat her opponent in one strike. But no, the one who was defeated in one strike was actually Joo Se-yeon. Amidst the astonished reporters and the head coach of Valhalla Sang Cheon, along with the heir of the Jushin family Yoo, Kim Joo-hyuk stood there, unimpressed, looking at his opponent lying defeated right before him. What is this? Why is everyone so weak? Is this really the future 300 years later? Oh, so why did you say that? It's simple. 300 years ago at the Tower of Destruction. The god of the tower, Destruction, God Butcher and the martial god Kim Han, had a fantastic battle. And the martial god managed to defeat the tower's monsters, successfully stopping the destruction of the world. However, it was truly wonderful. Like a pile of crap, the tower shook violently after Butcher's death. Kim Han, clutching his stomach in pain, wondered, did the tower collapse because I killed the boss? And it seems that it really did. In that life and death moment, bidding farewell to the mortal world, he suddenly remembered his students. Thankfully, he hadn't brought them along, or they would have died with him. Although unwilling, he could only laugh foolishly before turning into a heap of messy flesh. But death wasn't the end. Kim Han was reincarnated in the body of a 17-year-old 300 years after the Tower of Destruction collapsed. Anyway, he was completely satisfied to be alive again. His body was weaker and younger compared to when he was known as the martial god, but that wasn't a problem. If he trained again, he believed he would live a life of luxury, at least until that transparent window appeared. And of course, as the saying goes, follow the mood follows. That window always stuck to the hunter. The announcement that the Tower of Destruction would appear in 5 years came crashing in, making Kim Joo-hyuk want to go insane. He cursed that damn Butcher, thinking that he should have thrown that bastard into the lava back then. Now he couldn't do anything. He would destroy the tower once and for all, then live in luxury for the rest of his life. However, to live in luxury life still had a long way to go. The system reminded Kim Joo-hyuk that he could retrieve his weapon and memory on the 3rd floor, the 5th room on the right in Valhalla. And this was also why he participated in this recruitment competition. On the 4th day of the competition, the top 10 rankings began. This time Kim Joo-hyuk's opponent was the eldest son of the Osun family Ersey. This guy wasn't good at literature schemes or martial arts. However, he still had one extraordinary talent: muscular strength. Ersey could do things that others couldn't. If they didn't have mana and just put in a little effort in training, this guy could become many times stronger. Ersey's exceptional muscular strength was completely innate. Just that alone was enough for him to be called a genius. Looking at his opponent, he didn't seem very strong. Ersey thought he could defeat Kim Joo-hyuk in no time and use it to boost his own reputation. However, this could only happen in a dream. Truly a brainless guy. Just after Kim Joo-hyuk teased him a few times, he lost his cool and rushed in recklessly. Kim Joo-hyuk knew that he wouldn't win a battle of muscular strength in this body, because Ersey's muscular strength was no joke. However, being big doesn't necessarily mean victory. Martial arts help amplify muscular strength and the ability to observe the opponent. If you don't combine the two, the outcome will be like this. Kim Joo-hyuk narrowly dodged Ersey's attack, causing him to lose balance, and immediately spun around, delivering a finishing blow to his opponent's chest, making him fall to the ground in pain. Having won this meaningless match, Kim Joo-hyuk turned his back and coldly walked out. The reporters and members of the various factions present continuously whispered, discussing and evaluating his abilities. Among them was the clan leader of the Osun family, Cheol Shin, who recognized that Kim Joo-hyuk's strike wasn't just a simple attack. Even though his son didn't care about practicing martial arts and only focused on enhancing his muscular strength, he could easily dodge a punch from anyone his age. However, Se-yi couldn't dodge that punch. At first, Hyok was so angry that he lost his composure and just rushed straight at his opponent. At the same time, he used magic, which he almost never used, to quickly end the fight. But Kim Joo-hyuk slightly tilted his head to the side to avoid the attack, because Se-yi had been overly confident, thinking the opponent will definitely get hit, and thus changed his entire focus. Cheol-shin stroked his chin deep in thought, so that kid moved faster than Se-yi's maximum speed. The moment Se-yi charged, Kim Joo-hyuk had already made his plan. Just that alone was an extraordinary talent. He seemed quite excited looking around at the members of the other factions. Before turning back to the protagonist of the day, reassuring himself, I will definitely recruit him into our family at all costs. The break ended and the next match began. Kim Joo-hyuk's opponent was the second daughter of the Choi-jin family, Choi Arin. As soon as she appeared, the men in the stands immediately acted like they were in heat, constantly cheering and shouting. Kim Joo-hyuk felt his eyes itch and cursed. They look no different from a bunch of lunatics. Why the hell are these idiots who already did their military service calling a 17-year-old girl sister? He thought this would be like every other time where the opponent would be the one to attack first. But no, both of them stood there dumbfounded, like two avocados waiting for the other to make a move. Since that was the case, Kim Joo-hyuk decided he would strike first. With a rather villainous expression, he smirked and took a step forward. Just then, Arin realized the opportunity had arrived. She drew her sword and decisively slashed. But same as before, when fighting with others in the blink of an eye, Kim Joo-hyuk disappeared without a trace and suddenly appeared right next to his opponent. A huge question mark appeared above Arin's head. If she kept focusing on the point she was aiming to attack, it would be like drawing a path for a deer to run through. With that, he launched a counterattack towards her, forcing Arin to retreat quickly. Luckily, she used her sword to block the attack, which allowed her to stay on her feet. But before she could react, Kim Joo-hyuk, like a wandering ghost, was already standing right in front of her, delivering another strike to her body. Now try defending this, he challenged. Caught off guard by the sudden attack, Arin couldn't defend herself in time. She took the full blow and immediately collapsed. Watching his opponent crumple to the ground, Kim Joo-hyuk felt that something had gone wrong with the attack, but he decided to let it go after all he had already won. Thus, the top 10 ranking competition officially came to an end. The number 1 spot at the top of the leaderboard was none other than Kim Joo-hyuk. Tired, he walked out of the arena, massaging his slender shoulders, and bumped into the recruiters from the guilds. Such a nuisance. Kim Joo-hyuk glared at them with a death stare and uttered 4 words, "Shut the hell up." The next day, the news spread quickly across the papers. The young man who ranked first in the entrance exam had chased off and cursed the guilds who made recruitment offers. Comments like, "Is Kim Joo-hyuk crazy? Is he a bad guy?" and blah blah filled the news, continuously appearing in the marketplace. But no matter what happens, the young man is still the center of attention and boldly made his way into Valhalla with his own strength. The first thing upon enrollment was a session listening to advertisements about the school and a few speeches from those who contributed to the revolution. Oh no, the leaders of the academy. Seeing Kim Joo-hyuk yawning continuously made some of the people nearby feel uneasy. He wondered, did I stand out too much today? But never mind, that's fine. At least I don't have to get to know some random person. Standing there, it felt like my ears were going to fall off. Finally, the enrollment ceremony ended. The students were randomly assigned to classes. In the virtual combat simulation room, the leader of the guild, Choi Guild Instructor 24, looked over the students and thought to himself, is my time up? Why did the school organize the classes this way? Isn't it supposed to be random? In front of him was Yu Seon from the Susjin family. Beside her was Choi-jin from the Arin family. And the large figure in the middle was Se-yi from the Osun family. How could these 3 geniuses from the 5 families end up in the same class? And even more, why the hell is Kim Joo-hyuk here? Despite being in a complete mess, he quickly regained his composure, introduced himself as the class head, and also as the instructor for Kim Lee-hun. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately pressed a button on the keyboard. Everything around them suddenly shook, and they were transported to another space where a group of goblins and ogres appeared. About 100 of them. The monsters, upon seeing their prey, charged at them, but unfortunately for them, they were protected by a magical shield, so no physical attack from the outside could affect them. Kim Lee-hun called Kim Joo-hyuk over and asked, "Can you handle these monsters alone? This guy may look one way, but he's not like that." He wanted to embarrass Kim Joo-hyuk and lower his pride. For the students, they mostly only encounter monsters in books and have never seen them in real life. It's no surprise that he's scared. Stop pretending to evaluate, just refuse, and I'll begin when he hesitates. That's what he wanted. Kim Joo-hyuk thought for a while and then gave a sly smile. Seeing this, the instructor got quite angry and snapped at Kim Joo-hyuk to just do it. However, the young man wasn't stupid. Why should he do something like that? It was only the first day. He looked straight into his eyes and asked what the reward for this test would be. Kim Lee-hun hesitated for a moment, but then agreed to a trade. All right, as a condition, if you handle all the monsters, I will do anything you ask within reason. Now they understood each other a bit better, although it was a bit lacking, it was still acceptable. Kim Joo-hyuk agreed to the deal. Without giving the teacher a chance to explain further, he reached his hand out and demanded the sword from behind him. After all, how could he fight these monsters without a weapon? And so, under the watchful eyes of everyone, Kim Joo-hyuk swung his sword relentlessly. His strikes were precise, hitting the weaknesses and slicing the monsters' throats in a single blow. As he fought, he thought about things from the past. 300 years had passed since he last held a sword. He guessed it wasn't so bad. Back then, the world had been turned upside down by monsters, and people used anything they could find as weapons. But the sword was still the most familiar weapon. Just as he expected, the monsters were simple. They were just NPC monsters, cleverly created fakes. While he was enthusiastically cutting down monsters outside, inside, Kim Lee-hun was horrified and sweating profusely. He couldn't believe that the sword he had given to Kim Joo-hyuk was just an ordinary sword, with no magical power or strength. Yet Kim Joo-hyuk could easily cut through everything, slashing the monsters as if they were made of mud. Of course, it wasn't just Kim Lee-hun who was surprised, but even the three young men from the three prestigious families felt like this is insane. When the last monster was defeated, Kim Joo-hyuk slowly sheathed his sword. He turned to face the instructor and made his request. I want to go down to the constellation room. You'll keep your word, right? A few hours later, the first class finally ended. Kim Joo-hyuk listened to the lecture with such a dejected expression that it felt like his soul was leaving his body. It was as if he were being tortured. His original goal was just to take what he needed and leave as quickly as possible. But now here he was stuck listening to this nonsense. Thinking about it, he had never considered going to school, nor had he ever been to one before. But it wasn't entirely useless. Although the class was boring, he did gather some useful information, particularly about constellations. In Kim Joo-hyuk's previous life, there was no such thing as constellations. Constellations referred to the transition of individuals with great potential to become gods. Most constellations were related to hunters representing their achievements and granting them special powers. Valhalla in Korea was the third largest academy in the world, with many constellations based on achievements. It seemed like everything related to swordsmanship and monster hunting was useless to them. So Kim Joo-hyuk decided to go to the dormitory and train martial arts seriously. This body was really weak, and his thoughts were suddenly interrupted by the appearance of Choi Arin, the second daughter of the Choi Jin family. Teach me swordsmanship, she said when she saw Kim Joo-hyuk return. But as he had mentioned before, he didn't like it, so his answer was no. She still stood there and repeated the request again. At this point, Kim Joo-hyuk had completely lost his patience. He gave her a look of utter frustration and shouted at her. Are you deaf or something? Stop clinging to me. I have no intention of teaching you, so just leave. After saying that, he turned and walked away, leaving the young lady standing there dumbfounded. Meanwhile, in the teacher's room, the head coach was trying to comfort and reassure Kim Lee-hun after experiencing the humiliation like a mackerel. He still couldn't believe that Kim Joo-hyuk was actually a high school student, especially after completely annihilating 120 monsters in the virtual combat room with perfection. He had never seen a monster in real life before, and although he didn't seem special, being an orphan from a small orphanage in the area with a complicated background, he possessed extraordinary strength. Kim Lee-hun thought that Kim Joo-hyuk was a fraud. However, the head coach didn't think so. After all, what kind of fraud would be crazy enough to sneak into Valhalla and cause chaos during the entrance ceremony? That actually made sense. Kim Lee-hun continued to lament about what might happen next year. If they didn't handle Kim Joo-hyuk properly, it would be difficult to control the three young men from the prestigious families. The head coach, Lee Sang-cheon, expressed some sympathy, but quickly added, he's lucky that a student from the powerful Bentrick family is in a different class. At that, Kim Lee-hun felt a little relieved. His situation seemed better than the class next door, especially since he'd heard Jord Bentrick, the direct heir of the Bentrick family, had once been expelled for causing trouble at the British Academy. The next day, he thought he could live a peaceful life as an ordinary student. But it seemed his fate was tied to drama, so he was always in the spotlight. While sitting and thinking about a rich future, he was suddenly confronted by Jord Bentrick of the notorious Bentrick family, along with his entourage, including Iriaja Fix. Since Kim Joo-hyuk had been reincarnated, he obviously didn't know who this person was. As Jord approached, Kim Joo-hyuk had to ask for his identity. Rockdale stared at him, thinking to himself, this guy is such an ignorant fool. He had never even heard of the Bentrick family. Without saying much, Rockdale went straight to the point. gazing at him with ambition and tempting him. Do you want to become stronger? In most family branches, it was harder to gain power and wealth compared to direct heirs. However, the Bentrick family had a representation as a guardian constellation, which made them different from other families. Usually, a high-ranking guardian constellation or an S-ranked constellation would protect the family and choose a member to bestow power and protection upon. But for the Bentrick family, they decided to form a pact with a non-constellation member of their family. This method allowed the chosen one to form a contract without facing opposition from the constellations. Thanks to this unique choice, the Bentrick family held a lot of power throughout Europe. If you are a member of the Bentrick family, you can choose to make a fake contract regardless of your bloodline. Therefore, even branches of the family can wield power within their own clan. Those supported by such powers from their family had become excessively arrogant. Not long ago, due to the chaos at the British Academy, he was expelled. And to make up for that incident, he planned to recruit Kim Joo-hyuk, the center of attention at the entrance ceremony, into his camp. If you join me, I will take you to the constellation of our family. But before he could finish his sentence, he was immediately interrupted. So what, you idiot? Do I look like a fool to you? You're not even interested in me, right? All you've been doing is showing off. And now you're saying such stupid things. You're definitely an idiot. Am I wrong? This was the first time Rockdale had ever been insulted like this. He was furious and wanted to charge at this ignorant damn fool. But before he could do anything intervened, a sharp voice rang out from behind. Go back to your place. Rockdale, humiliated twice, turned around and slapped the teacher's face. Did you just call my full name? But the teacher wasn't one to back down. He responded firmly, this is not the British Academy, it's Valhalla. I don't care how powerful the Bentrick family is. If you study here, you must obey my advice as I'm the instructor. Rockdale, unable to do anything, had to storm off, leaving angrily. After school, Kim Joo-hyuk felt quite bored. Today he hadn't gained any more information about constellations. Instead, he had gotten involved with an idiot. As he walked while cursing the fool that had bothered him, suddenly, Choi Arin appeared like a ghost, materializing out of nowhere. She repeated her same old line, teach me your swordsmanship. This made Kim Joo-hyuk pause and question her, turning to her and threatening, do you think I haven't humiliated you enough? In the Valhalla Academy's high-end dormitory, after being humiliated by the orphan with no place to turn, Rockdale went on a rampage, destroying everything in his room. Then he grabbed Juji by the hair and slammed her head hard against the floor. Juji, answer me. Do you still think you're the royal family's eldest daughter? Should I throw you out of the house? Contact Jared. There are a few people who need special attention. Also, the son of the Joichi family in Class 2 told Lorik that he wants to meet him. At the same time, in Kim Joo-hyuk's room, although it was quite late, he was still diligently practicing. No, not studying, but exercising. However, halfway through, he was already out of breath, panting like a dog. This body of mine is truly worthless. I can't even use magic anymore. Suddenly, Kim Joo-hyuk remembered the deal he made with Choi Arin earlier. In an attempt to get rid of her, he carelessly asked for 10 million won for a lesson, thinking that Choi Arin would find it too much and back off. But no, she wasn't lacking in money. Choi Arin immediately asked for Kim Joo-hyuk's bank account number and transferred the money within the next minute. 100 million won was in his account. However, Kim Joo-hyuk still hesitated to accept it. He smiled brightly, I'll never teach you. In reality, he was truly surprised that someone like her could immediately transfer 100 million won. Kim Joo-hyuk stroked his chin, pondering, if I teach her, I won't have to reveal all of my secrets. That's a huge amount of money. Well, whatever. It's just money, I can make it myself, even though my mana is pitifully little. With that, he began to pack his things and prepare for a big mission. Let's go find that secret dungeon. Before entering this school, he had already checked the area. However, most of the records hidden 300 years ago had been destroyed. According to his research, there were still at least 4 records left, and he was certain that they were located on the mountain of Valhalla, as he knew the locations of these records could be identified by the reaction of the magic stone he carried. So Kim Joo-hyuk focused and tried his best to search for them using the little magic he had. Tada, thanks to his efforts, he finally found them. A beam of light appeared on the ground. Kim Joo-hyuk quickly started digging. While working, he cursed, this damn weak body. If I had known it would take this much effort, I would have buried it in a shallower spot. And if it weren't for the destruction tower 300 years ago, I wouldn't be struggling like this now. The world on the brink of destruction. At that time, there was no place to store his material wealth, so Kim Joo-hyuk created records and buried all of them. Digging away for hours, he dug until morning. Finally, Kim Joo-hyuk reached the outer shell of the basement, but the locks were quite special. Normal keys wouldn't fit into the lock. He tried to summon some mana, casting a spell to turn it into a key. Fantastic. It fit perfectly. Maybe I should quit being a hunter and become a thief instead. Kim Joo-hyuk immediately jumped down, looking at the pile of gold and treasures sparkling in front of him, feeling ecstatic. After all, they were all his. Are the kids doing well? My children? That was all Kim Joo-hyuk could say at that moment. Now he didn't have to worry about money anymore. Selling all this could even make him richer than those noble families. To maintain the signature, he had already infused a little magic before, but the time had come to use it. Kim Joo-hyuk took the jewels and absorbed all the magical power from them. As expected, energy flooded his body, and a tingling euphoric sensation coursed through him. Now it was time to handle this place. Kim Joo-hyuk wondered to himself, should he leave behind the heavy gold bars and take only the lightweight and valuable gemstones? Carrying all this would be a nightmare, but it really is a nightmare. Kim Joo-hyuk went to class with no mind for studying. His body felt like it was about to fall apart from exhaustion. He lay on his desk, not paying any attention to Choi Arin, who was sitting beside him. Still, she kept saying, "Teach me your swordsmanship." This made Kim Joo-hyuk wonder why she was so persistent. From the information he had gathered when he reincarnated among the 5 top families, the Choi-jin family practiced swordsmanship. So the question was, why was she looking for him? Choi Arin responded that she wanted to learn from him because she had never seen anyone wield a sword better than him. Kim Joo-hyuk continued to wonder, what about your father? He's the head of the Choi-jin family, right? He's better at swordsmanship than me, isn't he? Just then, before Choi Arin could answer, the teacher suddenly opened the door and called Kim Joo-hyuk to the teacher's room. As soon as he heard something about the constellation room, the young man immediately grabbed his things and ran. It seemed he could sense Choi Arin's sincerity, so he threw a few words her way before leaving "Meet me at the training field at 6 a.m. tomorrow." At the teacher's room, Kim Lee-hun quickly got to the point. The request to enter the constellation room had been approved. However, the condition was that he could only go to the basement and was not allowed to enter any floors lower than the first. It was acceptable, although Kim Joo-hyuk hesitated for a moment, but then happily agreed. He didn't forget to ask the teacher, "When can I go in?" After some thought, Kim Lee-hun replied, "If possible tonight, right now." Kim Lee-hun thought that Kim Joo-hyuk would make a fuss about not being allowed to go to the second floor, but surprisingly, he accepted it cheerfully. That night, as agreed, the teacher, now in a handsome appearance, took the young man to the treasure of Valhalla, the constellation room. This place was heavily guarded because it was so important that it helped make Valhalla one of the 3 greatest academies. Kim Joo-hyuk couldn't help but silently admire the place. Not only was the security tight, but the walls outside were also covered in all sorts of magic, except for the entrance. Kim Joo-hyuk suddenly turned to the teacher and asked, "What if I go down to the second floor?" Kim Lee-hun felt a bit nervous and quickly responded before it was too late, "You won't become a criminal, but you will be expelled and lose all memories before leaving the school. The magic of the constellation on the second floor is extremely violent. If you touch it, your mind will shatter and you'll go insane." With all his questions answered, Kim Joo-hyuk had 30 minutes to stay inside. A message appeared on the blue screen saying, "Find your weapon on the 3rd floor room to the right of Valhalla." Kim Joo-hyuk didn't care about being expelled or anything else. He had come to Valhalla from the very beginning because of it. And the first thing he did was head to the 3rd basement level. But after only a few steps, he suddenly bumped into something. Out of nowhere, a system window appeared with a prompt, and just like that, it pulled Kim Joo-hyuk into a strange room. "Long time no see, Kim Hyona." That was the first thing he heard after being sucked in, and right in front of him stood the bastard Bacha Tower King of the Tower of Destruction. 300 years had passed. This was a reunion, or not exactly. Basha hadn't even finished speaking when he took a punch square to the mouth with a loud smack. Kim Joo-hyuk was fuming, shouting straight into his face, I'm so happy to see you again, you damn bastard." Basha struggled to his feet, waving his hands frantically. "Kim Joo-hyuk, calm down, let me explain." But there was no calming down. For every word Basha managed to say, Kim Joo-hyuk replied with a punch. Basha kept crying for help, while Kim Joo-hyuk kept cursing him out. The room was filled with screams and yells. "Stop, don't hit me, help. Wait, please. I don't hit you. I'm gonna hit you even more. I'm not the kind of person who settles things with fists. But when it comes to someone who destroyed my peaceful future, you're damn right I'll use them. But you are different, you bastard. My wealth, my fame. The time I spent training those little disciples of mine, Bache took it all with no choice but to curl up and take the beating hands over his face. While Kim Joo-hyuk paused to catch his breath, Bache took the chance to crawl up and squeeze in a few words. "Well, wait a minute. Aren't you wondering where this place even is?" That's when it hit Kim Joo-hyuk. Where am I? Who am I? There was absolutely nothing familiar around him, just empty space. Bacha finally got the chance to sit up properly. He explained this is a fantasy world, or more precisely, a relic space. And the Bacha that Kim Joo-hyuk was seeing right now, just a projection created by the fantasy world. His real body had disappeared 300 years ago. With a huge question mark over his head, Kim Joo-hyuk narrowed his eyes and asked, "Wait, are you telling me you've been in this relic the whole time?" Bacha knew it was time to introduce himself. He rose proudly into the air, gazing down with a smug expression on his face. "That's right, Kim Joo-hyuk. I've become a constellation." But what becoming a constellation was supposed to be cool, Kim Joo-hyuk looked up at him totally unimpressed and started punching him relentlessly. That arrogant attitude was just too much to tolerate. 30 minutes passed. No one really knew if anything valuable had been gained, but as per the rules, Kim Joo-hyuk had to leave. As soon as he stepped outside, the instructor approached with a scowl and began interrogating him. "Did you do anything strange in there?" Kim Joo-hyuk gave a vague answer and quickly left. There were a lot of strange things he needed to figure out on his own. Back in the relic space, after thoroughly beating Baka to a pulp, he finally calmed down enough to speak civilly. Still, it was with his fists that he persuaded Baka to spill everything. Baka, on the verge of tears, but too bruised to cry, had a face swollen from all the hits. "After I was killed by Master, I've been trapped in this thing for 300 years, without a single shred of power. I only started regaining my memories after receiving a system message saying I had to make contact with the reincarnated one, you Kim Joo-hyuk. That's when some shady figure appeared. I wondered, could it be the same person who turned me into the Master of the Tower of Destruction?" Kim Joo-hyuk pressed him further. "Who was it who turned you into the Master of the Tower?" But it seemed Baka didn't know. That part of his memory was completely gone. After that, Baka turned to Kim Joo-hyuk and asked, "What did your system message say?" Kim Joo-hyuk recalled that greenish-blue system screen. It had instructed him to find the weapon and the memories. The rest was unreadable, obscured by a bunch of blacked-out squares. But as far as he remembered, he hadn't lost any memories. He still retained everything about the tower. Baka pointed forward and said, "Find the trigger point for the explanation. Maybe those memories haven't come back to you yet. Once you find the weapon, the memories will follow automatically." The more his junior talked, the more surreal it all sounded. "What weapon? I haven't found any weapon." Seeing that his master was still slow to catch on, Baka continued, "That's right. This space exists within the world of the 4 weapons, which have now become holy relics. Sword Village. I became a constellation solely because I used the relic." As soon as Kim Joo-hyuk heard that, it was like a switch flipped in his brain. He rushed over and gave the kid another solid beating, just to vent his rage. By this point, Kim Joo-hyuk had a rough grasp of what was going on. Baka used to be his disciple. But then some unknown force turned him into the master of the tower. In order to save the world, Kim Joo-hyuk had no choice but to kill him. Now Bashir had been resurrected, living the past 300 years in spiritual form inside Sword Village. And most bizarre of all, that very weapon, Sword Village, had become a holy relic, and inside it was an actual constellation. What a ridiculous situation. Kim Joo-hyuk wanted to destroy it and forget the whole thing. But despite its weakened state, the relic still held strong. After all, Baka, known as the King of Destruction, was inside. Fine, he'd keep it around at least for now. He figured that only the person who possessed Sword Village could see system notifications from it anyway. His head pounding from the avalanche of chaotic information, Kim Joo-hyuk's thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a group of thugs standing in his path. The one with blonde hair tried to look tough, cracking his knuckles and twirling a knife menacingly as he stepped forward. "Hey, you're that guy who ranked first at the entrance ceremony, Kim Joo-hyuk, right? You're standing in front of your upperclassmen. Aren't you going to greet me?" The guy was Lorik Sunrise, eldest son of the Sunrise family and a second-year student at Valhalla Academy. Normally someone would be intimidated by a senior like that, but this was Kim Joo-hyuk. He immediately shot back, "Upperclassmen, a bunch of bullies like you have juniors now." Insulted by the first year, one of them, pumped full of fighting spirit, grabbed his spear and stepped forward to handle the situation. "Newbie, let me teach you the difference between a first year and a second year." He didn't even get to finish the sentence before Kim Joo-hyuk landed a kick square in his stomach. Staring them down with utter disdain, Kim Joo-hyuk sneered, "I'm not much of a talker. I'm all about action. Stop yapping and come at me." Thugs or not, they were about to learn their place. Without giving them a chance to react, Kim Joo-hyuk dashed forward, turning the scene into a full-on brawl. One by one they got punched, kicked and slammed into the ground, lying there in a heap, groaning in defeat. Some of them were still standing frozen like statues, but Kim Joo-hyuk wasn't about to let them walk away unscathed. With a smug grin, he gave Sword Village a little twirl in his hand. God, it felt amazing. "Come on, hurry up. This is going to be fun. If you just stand there like that, I'll crush your skull myself." 3 hours earlier, Lorik Sunrise, the eldest son of the Sunrise family and a second-year student at Valhalla Academy, had been summoned by Rockdil Bentrick for a little favor. Specifically, take care of a first-year student, and in return, receive a reward that could greatly benefit the Sunrise family. Lorik had accepted immediately. He was even granted permission to use a weapon. He'd clean up the mess afterward. It was a simple offer with a high payoff. He didn't hesitate. His thoughts back then had been confident, even smug. So what if he's ranked first among the first years? A freshman is still just a freshman. There's no way he could beat a second year. At Valhalla, students were required to enter the Celestial Constellation Hall in the second semester of their first year and form a pact with one of the stars. Students who succeeded became known as pact bearers. As pact bearers, they could channel the energy of the constellation they had bonded with. And from what Lorik had gathered, Kim Joo-hyuk came from an ordinary family with no guardian star to protect or empower him. Game on, an easy win, that's what Lorik had thought before coming here. Now he understood what he was truly up against. Fear crept into him, but he didn't say a word. He just stood there frozen, watching Kim Joo-hyuk approach with cold intensity. What is that strange swordplay? He's barely using any force, but his opponents are getting hit with insane power. A million questions swirled in his head. Still, pride was a deadly disease, and Lorik, infected by it, kept pretending he had the upper hand. Meanwhile, the rest of his lackeys stood still behind him, statues of hesitation, unsure whether to charge in or run away. They couldn't allow themselves to lose this badly. Right. Lorik, ignoring the outcome, shouted to rally his lackeys into action. What are you scared of? Those bastards are just freshmen. He talked big, but deep down, he was terrified, nearly pissing himself. Kim Joo-hyuk stood there, sword in hand, waiting for the show to begin. Watching them flap their mouths, he sneered, "Oh, bold of you, fearless leader. Just so you know, the ones who freeze get hit first." As soon as the words left his mouth, he was already in front of Lorik, pressing the sword against his stomach, and then shoved it forward with force. Lorik blacked out on the spot. What a shame! He talked so much trash only to get folded like laundry. After waiting a while and seeing that the bastard still hadn't opened his eyes, Kim Joo-hyuk decided to help him out by giving his pretty face some physical encouragement. "Wake up, punk! Who are you, and why the hell did you bring a whole squad to jump me?" Despite the beating, Lorik gritted his teeth and refused to say a word. Not wanting to waste more time, Kim Joo-hyuk shrugged and walked off, tossing back. "Clean this mess up before you leave." Boiling with frustration, Lorik forced out a threat in a raspy voice. "You think you'll just go back to classes after this? Even if you're top-ranked in the first year, once people hear about this, you'll be expelled." Was this guy brain-dead, stealing then screaming thief? Kim Joo-hyuk was about to walk off, but figured he might as well set things straight. Say whatever you want, but think, what do you think people will say if you blab? A group of second years ganged up on one freshman and still got their asses kicked. You sure you won't be the one too ashamed to show your face on campus? Think carefully. If you still want to attend this academy and join a guild one day, you better shut your damn mouth. Meanwhile, back at the dorms, Rockdale was anxiously waiting for news of his enemy getting turned into pulp. Right on cue, Lorik called. Rockdale expected a victory report, but instead what he heard was, "I'm not getting involved in this anymore." Rockdale panicked and tried to convince his upperclassmen to file a complaint with the academy against Kim Joo-hyuk. He even promised to pay big hell to pay his whole family if need be. But for these street thug-style elites, money wasn't everything. They still had honor. So the answer was simple no. Rockdale was furious. In a fit of rage, he smashed his brand-new smartphone into pieces on the floor. Then he turned to Juji, who had been standing behind him, his eyes full of madness. "You contacted Jera, didn't you? Where is he now?" Juji, clearly used to tantrums like this, calmly responded, "Yes. I informed him you wanted to meet, but he's far away. It'll take some time for him to arrive." Meanwhile, in Mexico Aria Academy, Jera Bentrick, a thug who specialized in bullying others, had just received Rockdale's message about flying to Korea to deal with someone named Kim Joo-hyuk. The reward had already been prepared. Upon hearing the news, he grinned like a devil on Christmas morning. The next day, 6:00 a.m. Valhalla Academy Training Hall. Kim Joo-hyuk showed up for the first time, gear in tow, ready to start his physical training. He was excited, warming up with a few basic moves, until a sudden voice behind him made him flinch. "What? Why are you here?" A cold sweat trickled down Kim Joo-hyuk's back. He spun around and shot back. "What? Who's there?" "Bacha, where are you talking to me from?" Turns out, the guy was hiding inside the sealed sword. Kim Joo-hyuk, clearly pissed off, shouted at him, "I'm surprised you even managed to sneak out of there. I swear, I'm going to beat you up and shove you right back in." Terrified of this teacher, Bacha hurriedly promised not to cause any trouble and confessed that he'd left a replica of the sword behind. Kim Joo-hyuk was a bit curious about this copy-making ability. Bacha explained that ever since he woke up, he'd lost all of his original powers, but somehow gained this new ability. He didn't even know why he had it himself. While still mulling that over, Arin arrived. She showed up as promised, ready to teach Kim Joo-hyuk swordsmanship. But the guy just said flat out, "We're not training yet. First things first, improve physical strength." Lesson 1, warm-ups. If you build your stamina, your body can absorb more mana, and it becomes easier to control. Kim Joo-hyuk found it strange how the younger generation trained. Nowadays they poured everything into mana control without even improving their physical condition first. Even Arin over there. Massive mana reserves, but her stamina was barely above that of a beginner who just picked up a sword. And so, like a real coach, Kim Joo-hyuk began his days not so much as a student, but as a suffering trainee. That same morning, Kim Joo-hyuk's class had a little written quiz, supervised by Lilia, a senior instructor at Valhalla. The topic had been announced earlier, monsters from other worlds. She told the students to self-study and read up on monsters. Now it was time to test that knowledge, specifically how to deal with different types of monsters. Everyone quickly scribbled down their answers and completed the test. Even though this quiz wouldn't count toward the final grade, it was used to assess who could keep up with the next level of classes. So yeah, tension was high. Everyone was serious, except Kim Joo-hyuk. There was something seriously off about that dude. Even Batcha had to gasp, "Are you sure you're allowed to answer like that, sir?" Meanwhile, in the first-year staff room, the teacher was reviewing the tests and looked pretty pleased. Lilia confidently told Professor Kim Lee-hun, just as expected, students from all 5 noble houses did very well. But that was just the calm before the storm. The professor hadn't even finished his sip of coffee when he spit it all out. Kim Joo-hyuk. Did this guy seriously call this pile of paper his answers? Furious, Lilia crumpled the paper in rage and turned to Kim Lee-hun fuming. "He's not just being lazy, he's mocking the class. This is unacceptable. Next lesson I'm going to show him this test and give him a proper education. That little monster is not going to get away with this." And yeah, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. 1 week later, in the simulation battle room, Lilia summoned Kim Joo-hyuk on the spot. She slapped that big fat 0 of a test in front of his face and demanded, "Did you take this test seriously?" Kim Joo-hyuk had no clue what she was ranting about, cursing in his head. Is this lady nuts or what? But out loud he replied firmly, "I absolutely answered seriously." Lilia was seething but kept her composure. First question, what's the best way to defeat a rock troll? How did you answer? Kim Joo-hyuk faced deadpan as ever said, "Stab it in the gut." Next question, you encounter 8 goblins charging at you in a forest. What do you do? Without blinking, Kim Joo-hyuk picked up his test and read aloud, "Start with the first one rushing in. Stab each one and send them straight to hell." Lilia was boiling, but she couldn't refute him. After arguing back and forth with the student and running out of words, she finally said, "All right, if you can take down this monster the way you described in your test, I'll give you a new grade." She figured he'd chicken out and beg for mercy, but nope. Kim Joo-hyuk casually walked over to the weapon rack, grabbed a random sword, and stepped right up to the rock troll. The beast raised its arms, ready to attack. But in the next moment, all that could be heard was its painful roar as the sword pierced straight through its gut. And just like that, the rock troll vanished in seconds. Kim Joo-hyuk turned around and looked at the group of students who were standing there in shock, his expression as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "There, I just stabbed it in the stomach. That's it." The students below were stunned for a few seconds, wondering, no magic, he took down a stone goblin with just a regular sword. Witnessing this, the teacher no longer dared to act smug, and in a soft voice, she asked the young boy, "What did you do to it?" Kim Joo-hyuk looked at her with a questioning gaze. "Didn't you see what I did? Just stabbed it in the stomach, that's all." The answer felt almost like an insult. "Are you blind?" Lilia no longer felt embarrassed, but instead found it absurd. She bit her fingernail, thinking through a dozen pieces of information. If you want to take down a stone goblin with a dagger or sword, you'd at least need to be equipped with an A-level weapon. So it would make sense to take down a stone goblin with a single sword strike using such a weapon, but he did it with just a regular sword. Just when she thought this was over, it wasn't. The teacher still wanted to verify the second question. Immediately, Kim Joo-hyuk was transferred to another scene. Before he could even take a moment to assess the situation, a group of green goblins, or simply battle-crazed goblins, appeared right in front of him. These creatures were quite difficult to handle simply. If handled wrong, the ones in the front would use their battle raw skill, and the others would swarm in all at once. Normally, powerful mages would wipe them all out in one go or run away, rather than face them head-on. But for whom not for Kim Joo-hyuk? He didn't care how many there were or what fighting style they used. He simply drew his sword and charged. The first goblin, a single strike piercing straight through its head from top to bottom, full of pain. The second creature roared, only to receive a sword thrust straight into its throat. One by one, each goblin was taken down. Kim Joo-hyuk turned to the teacher and confidently said, "I answered the second question correctly, didn't I?" At this point, the teacher was speechless, too shocked to utter a single word. The next day, as usual, Kim Joo-hyuk dragged Ah into the training room to work on her physical conditioning. Despite her best efforts, she couldn't keep up and collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. Kim Joo-hyuk, curious, asked, "Don't you usually train too? Why are you lying here like a dog on its back?" He continued. "How are you supposed to fight monsters like this?" Arin, exhausted, tried to explain that she could use magic by borrowing power from the protective constellations. Just as Kim Joo-hyuk had predicted, instead of focusing on physical training, they focused on magical strength. Since they relied on the constellations, they didn't need physical strength. It would be fine if they borrowed enough power from the constellations, but the risks were too high. What if they got trapped in a maze or dungeon where magic was forbidden? Or what if they ran out of mana during a long battle? And what if the protective constellations refused to lend their power? Too many issues could arise. Kim Joo-hyuk let Arin rest while he went for another round of training. Once the beautiful girl left, Bacha dared to ask his master, "Why are you helping her train?" It turned out that Kim Joo-hyuk had only agreed because her constant chatter had given him a headache. As they were chatting, he noticed Se-yi-er, the muscle training fanatic, was also there, and it seemed he had been training quite a bit. Watching Se-yi's back as he left, Kim Joo-hyuk thought he seemed smarter than those who only focus on training magic. He then began wondering what the constellations were up to their actions, shrouded in mystery. Bacha could only answer, "I don't know," because he truly had no idea. Not wanting to get punched, the disciple added, "If we complete the new mission on the system, we might learn more about the constellations." That reminded Kim Joo-hyuk, and he quickly opened the damn window to check. It had some new information. It mentioned that he needed to go to the Great Forest Eye of Valhalla, Arona's home, to complete the mission. It sounded familiar, but he had only seen it for the first time. The Great Forest Eye was the final destination of the first semester. If it weren't for this annoying mission, Kim Joo-hyuk would have gone there to recover his strength right after, but now it seemed he had to endure until then. No matter how foolish he was, he still realized, as long as the mission wasn't complete, he couldn't be expelled from the academy. His secret needed to be kept hidden. At the same time, in the United Kingdom, London, at the Bentrick estate, the Vice Lord of the Bentrick family, Adelia sat confidently in her chair, listening to her subordinates report about Diera being summoned to South Korea by Rockdeal. Hearing these names made her feel a sharp headache. Jero Bentrick, the troublesome child of the family and the worst troublemaker, had used the Bentrick name to cause numerous scandals. At 19, he had killed 5 people from the British Academy over a simple argument. As a result, when he turned 20, his name was completely erased from the Bentrick family records. He had lived in hiding for years and was now seeking to meet Rockdeal. Knowing that trouble was imminent, Adelia immediately ordered her subordinates to monitor him before it was too late. Not stopping there, she also sent a message to Rockdeal. "If I find out that he is involved in anything shady, he will be expelled from the family." For Adelia, she couldn't stand those who lived off the family's power without effort. All of them had access to the family's power without any hard work, and that power wasn't meant for trash. It was all hers and hers alone. The next day, even though Kim Joo-hyuk was in class, his mind was clearly elsewhere. Lost in thought, he was suddenly signaled by the girl at the desk in front of him, who handed him a piece of paper. As soon as he read it, his face changed and his demeanor shifted in an instant. Since the students were allowed to go out this week, as soon as class ended, Kim Joo-hyuk quickly wrote a permission slip. Joo Se-yeon, who had been trailing behind him the whole time, stuttered, unable to say anything coherent, which made him even more frustrated. Despite answering politely, "If you don't respond to that note, I'll get mad," she continued to speak aimlessly, not making much sense. Joo Se-yeon just wanted to ask Kim Joo-hyuk how he was able to defeat the stone golem so easily. But as soon as the words left her mouth, she felt embarrassed, as if she were insulting her own pride. But before she could finish, their teacher suddenly appeared out of nowhere, cutting off her question. "Tell me, how did you kill that stone golem?" The teacher took all the attention, leaving Joo Se-yeon feeling awkward and embarrassed. Not only that, but the teacher also invited Kim Joo-hyuk to become her assistant, offering many privileges, especially the chance to study various ways to defeat monsters. Watching the two of them leave, Joo Se-yeon felt like crying in silence. Well, she decided not to ask anymore. The next day, as he had planned, Kim Joo-hyuk took his accumulated wealth and went to a night market to sell it. The reason he chose the night market was that he didn't want to reveal his identity, and other similar items would be sold there as well. This illegal market still existed because it was created and maintained by a protective constellation known as the Hidden Ruler. Because it was created and actively supported by a constellation, high-level players frequented it openly. Even though it was illegal, the government never made any attempt to shut it down. This was also why Kim Joo-hyuk could easily figure out how to infiltrate it. As per the online instructions, he quickly arrived. Looking around, he felt both familiar and unfamiliar with the scene. The sky was purple, and the moon was covered with clouds, just like the night sky he had seen 300 years ago. Putting the sky aside, Kim Joo-hyuk soon met the staff member mentioned in the article he had read. After paying the 2 million won entrance fee, he was welcomed like a VIP. From this person, Kim Joo-hyuk received a mask and information about the most reputable trader. Following the directions, Kim Joo-hyuk eventually found Morris, who was known for offering the best prices. Without wasting time, Kim Joo-hyuk pulled out a bag filled with precious rings. Initially, Morris seemed uninterested, thinking they were cheap items. But as soon as he picked one up and examined it, he was stunned. After inspecting it from every angle, he exclaimed, "This is a relic from the Age of Destruction. Are the others from the same period? They were all from the same era." Where did he get so many relics? Morris wondered. However, The rule of the market was not to ask about personal matters, so of course Kim Joo-hyuk didn't answer. He urged Morris to check quickly and tell him how much he could offer. After a moment of thought, Morris replied, "I don't know. I can't appraise these relics from the Age of Destruction, and I don't have enough capital to buy them." Kim Joo-hyuk was quite surprised and pushed harder, asking where he could sell them. Morris pointed to a tall tower in the distance, the auction hall. However, it would take 2 to 3 weeks for his turn to come up due to the large number of reservations, and he would have to return for verification and payment again. It was a complicated process. Despite having more money, Kim Joo-hyuk wasn't satisfied. He asked Morris, "Can you give me an estimated value?" Morris typed a number into the computer. It was too many digits for Kim Joo-hyuk to count. Although he knew these items were valuable from his previous life, he never expected them to be worth this much. Morris explained that based on his estimation, even if he sold his entire fortune, it would only be a third of the total value of these relics. Not wanting to complicate things further, Kim Joo-hyuk agreed to sell them for that amount, leaving Morris in disbelief. The relics from the Age of Destruction were traded at high prices because of their age. There was also a significant reason behind this. It was because of the constellations. The constellations began to appear after the age ended and reacted strangely to relics from that era. It was said that a regular person could form a contract with a constellation using one of these relics. Morris carefully examined the rings, watching the mana flow through the details and the magic still lingering on the items. He felt incredibly lucky to be able to buy such bargains with so little money. Just then someone appeared, astonishing Morris, as he had registered anonymously for the auction. The market owner Beckett came to greet him personally. Looking at the items in Morris's hands, Beckett couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "It seems like my guardian constellation really wants this ring." After completing the transaction, Kim Joo-hyuk quickly left. Seeing the money in his account made him feel as happy as during the new year. He no longer had to worry about his finances. If he ran low, he could always take more from his relic stash. He still had a ton left. Just then his phone rang. He answered, and before he could say anything, Lilia, his teacher, invited him to lunch. Since he was already hungry and it was free food, why not go? But as the saying goes, food brings humiliation. Lilia kept rambling on about inviting him to become her teaching assistant, listing a bunch of benefits, scholarships, allowances, writing theses with her, and even gaining recognition at the prestigious Monster Research Association. And of course, money would follow, blah blah blah. The best part, he would get to go out twice a week instead of just once a month. Hearing all this made his head ache. None of these benefits appealed to him. What Kim Joo-hyuk needed right now was to get to the Great Forest Eyes, and he could only go there during the final year-end assessment. Even though she was a professor, she couldn't help with that. Kim Joo-hyuk flatly refused her, saying, "I won't become your teaching assistant, and I won't write a thesis with you, so stop dreaming." But Lilia, undeterred, proposed that if he shared some information about monster attacks, she would reveal something in return. Kim Joo-hyuk was curious and asked what kind of information he expected, something interesting, but instead she talked about Choi Arin, which didn't pique his interest at all. After eating his fill, Kim Joo-hyuk stood up abruptly and headed for the door. Before leaving, he curiously asked Lilia, "Why treat your students like this? They're still kids and you're so harsh with them." As if hit where it hurt, Lilia began a long explanation, but in short, she believed that as a professor of mystical monsters, it would be wrong not to put in her best effort. Normally, monster attacks directly affected the survival rates of students. If they couldn't even remember basic attack moves, she had to be strict with them. Kim Joo-hyuk listened and then casually remarked, "That's just your personal desire." He waved goodbye and left. At the Sihang estate, the residence of the Choi Jin family, John Seup, the head of the Choi family and president of the Chu History Association, called for his eldest son Choi Jin-jeon and his second daughter Choi Arin to ask about their plans before participating in the classification exam. If they passed, they might have the chance to form a contract through the Cheong-wundo sacred relic, a ceremony to become the family's successor. However, if they failed, they would be expelled from the family. As he spoke, he unsheathed his sword, his stern gaze focused on them. "So will you participate?" Both of them were a little intimidated, but since their father had spoken, they agreed. The classification exam would be in 3 weeks, so they had plenty of time to prepare. On their way home, Choi Jin-jeon, who didn't seem to like Arin very much, muttered a few insults showing his disdain and challenging her. "When you said you'd participate in the classification exam, didn't you see Dad's face? It looks like you really want to become the clan leader." "The child of a beast. Look at you, I'm terrified." "Don't fantasize that you'll win. You can't even receive blessings from the constellation. How can you beat me, someone who has made a contract? Are you giving up on that idea? We'll just keep leeching off the family money, and I'll make you pay it all back." A few days later, as time passed and the midterm exams drew near, while the homeroom teacher lectured endlessly about the rules and penalties for failing, Kim Joo-hyuk didn't hear a single word. His mind wandered far away. All the exams at Valhalla were crucial for both midterms and finals. If he scored poorly, he would be expelled. So Kim Joo-hyuk felt a bit anxious. The practical exam was easy, but the written exam was a different story. He needed to stay at the academy until the end of the semester to get to the Great Forest, but he still didn't know how to achieve that. Suddenly, Kim Joo-hyuk came up with an idea. He called Bacha. "You've participated in most of the classes, right? So do the exam for me." Bacha immediately refused. He felt it was unfair. But no matter how much he resisted, it was no use. After a few threats from Kim Joo-hyuk, Bacha reluctantly agreed. After class, Arin, who had already packed her things, approached shyly and asked Kim Joo-hyuk about training. Since he needed to practice with weapons anyway, he decided to teach her some sword techniques. While swordsmanship could be complicated, he started with the basics of holding the sword. A fundamental move every swordsman should know. According to Arin, it had been a long time since she had trained with Kim Do-hoo. She hadn't touched her sword in ages. Although she used to train regularly, Kim Joo-hyuk asked her to draw her sword, but something seemed off. He began to teach her step by step, focusing the strength on the ring and pinky fingers, firmly gripping the sword's hilt. At this point, Arin could feel something was different. She didn't need to channel mana into the sword, yet it felt more stable and secure than holding it with both hands. "Come on, show me everything you've got with that sword." Kim Joo-hyuk continued waiting for the display of her strength. Arin's speed had significantly increased thanks to her relentless training. Kim Joo-hyuk kept guiding her through the movements for attacking, how to focus her energy, and so on. And as expected, Arin had become much stronger. She silently thanked Kim Joo-hyuk for his help over the past days. An hour later, it seemed both of them were exhausted. Kim Joo-hyuk called for her to stop. "That's enough for today." Arin tiredly sat down on the ground. She looked at Kim Joo-hyuk standing there, and a crazy thought crossed her mind. She asked him, "Next time, can you train with me?" Kim Joo-hyuk thought for a moment. Sparring with Choi Arin would certainly teach him a lot, and teaching someone as talented as her was quite enjoyable. He had noticed her unique swordsmanship since the opening ceremony, and although she used the breath technique, it felt very different due to her special swordsmanship talent. He could find his own rhythm again. If this were 300 years ago, she would have been a talent worth accepting as his disciple, but sadly not anymore. He wasn't free like that anymore. Feeling that teasing her was quite fun, Kim Joo-hyuk said he didn't want to spar anymore. He thought Arin would beg and plead, but instead she simply said she understood, which surprised him. Arin responded, "Since you're always right, I'll follow your advice, no matter what it is." 2 weeks later, at the Valhalla Stadium, all the first-year students gathered. Everyone knew the reason, except for one person. Kim Joo-hyuk wondered why he had to be there. Bacha, frustrated and gloomy, complained. "The homeroom teacher mentioned this 2 weeks ago. If I could just punch that teacher a few times, we wouldn't have to wait so long." The head coach and teachers stepped forward to explain the midterm exam rules. This time the practical evaluation would involve an attack on the dungeon. The students would form teams and enter an artificial dungeon. Anyone could join any team. The ideal team size was 8, but they could decide whether to add or reduce the number of members. The school would evaluate everyone based on their contribution during the dungeon attack. With a 5-hour cutoff, if they couldn't complete the test within the time limit, they would be disqualified. The difficulty level of the dungeon was F+. Let the exam begin. With that announcement, the students scrambled to form teams. The children from the 5 major families probably had a good understanding of the test, while others formed groups of 20 or 8. If the teams weren't balanced, fights were bound to break out as students entered the dungeon, and points would immediately start being counted. However, there were exceptions. Everyone joined a team except for Kim Joo-hyuk, who decided to go solo. For him, the game was easy. But he wasn't alone. Kim Joo-hyuk was surprised to see Arin still standing there, not entering the dungeon. "Oh, so that's why she said she would follow my instructions from now on. I'm going in alone, so she's doing the same." Others invited her to join their teams, but Arin coldly declined. "Sorry, I'll go in alone. I can do it." Kim Joo-hyuk also said it's not that hard. That's what she told them before entering. At the Valhalla control room, the monitors were watching and grading the test strictly. The scores seemed low as the lead examiner Lee Sang-chun was notorious for his high standards. In his youth, he was called the Dungeon Master, a legend with a 99% dungeon clearing success rate. That was why he understood the core of dungeon attacks better than anyone else. After observing the students, he seemed satisfied with this year's group. There were quite a few talents, especially Jun Xion, who showed excellent combat skills, applied textbook healing techniques, handled situations cleverly, and directed the team members to specific positions to ensure they earned points. More importantly, this kid formed teams during the battle to guarantee the dungeon would be completed. Jun Xion was good, but unfortunately, this year Sukancho had encountered Kim Joo-hyuk, which tarnished their record. Speaking of Kim Joo-hyuk, the teacher decided to search for him. But what the hell? To his surprise, he couldn't find his name anywhere. Lee Sang-chun thought the system might be malfunctioning. Wasn't it supposed to track all the students who entered the dungeon? Something didn't feel right. He opened the list of those who had completed the test to check. Oh, there it was. Sure enough, Kim Joo-hyuk's name appeared right in front of the teacher. The teacher was stunned and couldn't believe that he had gone solo, finishing the dungeon in just 23 minutes and 32 seconds. This had never happened before at Valhalla. The teacher didn't believe it, so he had to review the footage to confirm. One monster, two monsters, then a whole bunch, all of them sliced effortlessly by Kim Joo-hyuk. From the bow pins to the brutal axe wielding, within just a few minutes he was standing in front of the boss. The boss, a specially created lunge dog for the midterm exam, was handled with one swift strike. His stats were as if they were combined from 8 people. Watching this, Lee Sang-chun couldn't help but smile in helplessness. It seemed that the top spot for the exam was already secured by Kim Joo-hyuk. The test quickly ended. Some were happy while others were left struggling. Looking at the results, the homeroom teacher was speechless. Seeing this, the head coach explained I had guessed that he would top the rankings, but I didn't expect him to clear the dungeon solo without a scratch. If he continues developing and pursues this path, South Korea might reclaim the title of the strongest contract holder. Kim Lee-hun, witnessing this, stuttered and asked the head coach. Realizing he had jumped the gun, he casually added, "Maybe because it's been so long since a real talent has emerged, I got too excited." But this is still not the biggest surprise. The person in second place, Choi Arin, is the real shocker. Lee Sang-chun never thought she would go solo. However, she did complete it, though it took a little longer, and she sustained quite a few injuries. He commented to the homeroom teacher, if this test was team-based, Joo Se-yeon would have had a higher score. But Kim Joo-hyuk and Choi Arin earned higher marks for their contribution. The results are in, and we won't discuss it further. Despite the teacher's statement, Kim Lee-hun remained skeptical. He had met her when she was still part of the Choi Jin clan. Arin seemed like a model student who focused solely on swordsmanship, yet now she had the idea of completing the dungeon alone. It was insane. For a moment he thought Kim Joo-hyuk had influenced her, but he quickly dismissed that thought. The next day, as expected, the leaderboard results shocked everyone. Seeing Kim Joo-hyuk's name glaring at him made Kim Lee-hun grind his teeth in frustration. He turned to his assistant and asked, "Jera is in South Korea, right? Call him immediately." Julia, sensing something was up, followed orders obediently, since she was just a mere assistant. That same day at the Jamsi restaurant, Rockdill hurried out to meet Jera. Upon seeing the scar-faced man, Rockdill waved and greeted him. Then, as if starved for decades, he immediately grabbed a steak, shoved it in his mouth, and chewed greedily. As he ate, Jera mumbled between bites, "So the person you want me to take care of, Kim Joo-hyuk, what's he up to?" After waiting for so long, Rockdill finally spoke up. "It's nothing, he just annoys me because of his lowly origins. Please, send him back to where he belongs." "Oh, so he's a classist," the godlike figure replied. Jera struggled to finish his piece of steak before looking up and asking, "Can I kill him?" Rockdill casually nodded. "Do as you wish," Jera said, pointing at Julia and revealing that he had just killed a woman from her clan for being too nosy, leaving her trembling in fear. He then grinned menacingly and reminded Rockdill to prepare the payment. A week later, since he was the top scorer of the exam, Kim Joo-hyuk was allowed to go out for a bit. Basha noticed and continuously nagged him. "Didn't you already go out?" Not wanting to argue with the incessantly annoying guy, Kim Joo-hyuk replied, "I need to find my notes in Suwon." He grabbed his luggage, set his Google Maps, and wandered to a hill. Just as he was about to relax and enjoy a snack and tea, someone disturbed him. Kim Joo-hyuk stopped and asked the man in front of him, "Who are you, where are you from, and what the hell are you doing here?" Of course, Jera didn't answer. He ignored the question and started rambling. "Ever wondered why it's me and not anyone else who found you on this mountain?" Kim Joo-hyuk knew exactly why. He had once been the Sword King after all, and he wasn't stupid. "So what, are you implying that once you're done you'll just leave like nothing ever happened?" "Exactly," Jera sneered. Perfect match, like two birds of a feather understanding each other completely. With that, both immediately assumed defensive stances and began fighting. Kim Joo-hyuk tossed his backpack down. With a thud, Jera threw a vicious punch. As his fist was about to land on Kim Joo-hyuk's cheek, he swiftly dodged, and Jera's punch hit a nearby tree, snapping it in half. Jera, clearly enjoying the fight, turned to his opponent and threatened, "Oh, you're lucky. You dodged that. If you hadn't, you'd know the result, right?" Kim Joo-hyuk smirked and replied, "Lucky? No, I dodged because your move was too slow." Glancing at the damage Jera had caused, he knew the guy was strong, possibly as strong as, or even stronger than Kim Joo-hyuk. He realized that Jera was too dangerous for him. His frail body couldn't take another hit. So he decided that in this case, retreating was the best option. Jera, not willing to let his prey escape, eagerly chased after him, thinking he had the upper hand. But unexpectedly midway, Kim Joo-hyuk turned around and landed a punch to Jera's face. Jera stumbled and fell. Kim Joo-hyuk, with a wicked grin, raised his foot and delivered a powerful kick to Jera's face. At the last second, Jera twisted his body to avoid the blow, narrowly escaping a serious injury. Fuming, Jera stood up, wiped the blood from his nose, and gritted his teeth, cursing, "What you just did surprised me." Kim Joo-hyuk responded coolly, "In just a moment you must have realized that I'm the top ranker at Valhalla. After hearing this, Jera fell silent. He knew, but he couldn't understand what kind of drug Kim Joo-hyuk had taken to become so strong. The Bentrick family members used their family's talents to enhance their combat abilities, even if their talent was just an innate ability in pharmaceutical crafting. Jera could easily use any type of pharmaceutical given to him. His parents made him consume hundreds of thousands of enhancement potions, so by the age of 16 he was stronger than an adult. His parents wanted to use him to gain recognition from the family, but once Jera grew enough power, he no longer wanted to live under their control. He sent his parents away and was expelled from the family by someone claiming to be the leader. However, Jera didn't care. In this dark world, most problems could be solved with money when given a commission, and he became even more reckless after severing ties with his family. When he received a commission from Rockdil, he initially asked for cash, but then became more interested in Kim Joo-hyuk and decided to just ask for his life. He wondered how fun would it be to team up with the top scorer from the entrance exam and be considered crazy for making insulting remarks to eliminate all the association spies. However, when facing Kim Joo-hyuk, Jera had a different question. Who was this guy? Jera paused for a moment and suddenly asked, "Hey, what kind of drug did you take to get this strong? I don't think someone like you, an orphan, could afford any cheap pharmaceuticals." Kim Joo-hyuk burst out laughing after hearing that. He laughed so hard he had to clutch his stomach before finally responding, "Steroids? Ha ha ha. You idiot. What the hell do you mean by luckily Sam? So it turns out you're just some muscle junkie, huh?" Jera looked like he'd just been insulted to the core, but still stubbornly asked, "Are you really saying you didn't use any drugs to get strong?" The more nonsense Jera spouted, the more hyped up Kim Joo-hyuk got. He was itching for a fight. Stretching his shoulders and neck, he replied with a smirk, "Of course not, dumbass. I got strong through hard work and training. In some ways, I could compare you to ER, but even that would be way too generous. Comparing someone naturally built like him to a guy like..." Jera was just plain offensive. Jera's face twisted in humiliation, like a monkey chewing on chili, and he whipped out his weapon, cursing under his breath. "You're dead meat, bastard. What, you been chewing too much grass and gone delusional?" He barely managed to draw his blade and summon a bit of magic, about to say something cool. Bam! He got smacked hard on the head before he could even open his mouth. "You think I'd let you go that easy? You really are brain dead. What kind of idiot waits for his enemy to power up?" Kim Joo-hyuk shouted, while beating him senseless, not holding back on the insults either. His trash talk was savage, a solid 10 out of 10. Jera, beaten and bruised, raised his hand in surrender. "I give up, but is that all you've got?" Kim Joo-hyuk leaned in close, grabbed Jera's hair and growled with a wild grin. "You're not passing out yet, you stupid drug sucker. I was gonna let you off, but all you've done is beg me to fight. And didn't you say you'd take care of me? Well, now I can't let you go. I've got a few questions, so bite down on something this'll hurt." Faced with a fist inches from his face, Jera turned pale and screamed in despair. This is what they mean by playing with fire and getting burned. A sewer rat like me trying to ride the waves of the ocean, dream on honey. At the same time, over at the Valhalla dormitory, Jokdil was anxiously awaiting good news from his senior. He was utterly convinced that by now Kim Joo-hyuk had already been taken down. But little did he know, the one who'd be needing a coffin was actually Jera. Rockdil cheerfully called out to Julia to get the car ready. They were heading out to clean up the body. Right at that moment, Jera's call came through. Rockdil quickly snatched up the phone and answered with an eager tone. "Yes, sir. Have you dealt with him yet, bro?" The voice on the other end went silent, then emitted painful moans. After that, a familiar voice said, "I bet you have no idea what the hell is going on, huh? Just think about what kind of expression you'll have. Here, let me translate for your buddy. If I die, light 2 incense sticks for me. Wait for me, okay? RC Roo, and inject." After hearing this, the guy's face turned pale, and he immediately hung up, not giving Kim Joo-hyuk a chance to say another word. Now, he was scared, afraid that what he did would be exposed, afraid of facing the consequences. It was only a matter of time before the news reached the Bentrick family. Rock held his head in silence, but in his heart, he was plotting to destroy Kim Joo-hyuk again. He thought that Kim Joo-hyuk was just a lowly commoner, so nothing serious would happen. He believed that as long as he lay low for a while, everything would be fine. On Kim Joo-hyuk's side, after dealing with the fool, the two of them continued their search for the ruins with their backpacks. The more Batcher thought about it, the more confused he became, and he finally spoke up. "The guy you just beat, did he forget to bring his brain? Why didn't you just kill him?" Too tired of the chattering student, Kim Joo-hyuk had to respond to the question. "If it were me in the past, I would have just ended that guy right away. But now, I'm just a high school student." That made sense. Batcher continued rubbing his chin. This magic. There are a few things I'm really concerned about. You're talking about the magic that guy was emitting earlier. It felt strangely familiar. If he could release more, I could have confirmed it. But I've encountered this before. Don't you feel anything? Oh, so it's magic. Kim Joo-hyuk didn't think it was anything special, since he wasn't an evil demon anymore, so he didn't care about it. Going back to what Jera had confessed after a few of his fingers were broken, Kim Joo-hyuk looked at him and softly asked, "Who sent you to find me?" "Right, I remember I hit your jaw out of place earlier." Then he placed his hand in the guy's mouth and cracked his teeth back into position. Now his mouth could open. Jera still stubbornly refused to speak, but after seeing his fingers one by one being broken, he finally spoke. "Rockdil Bentrick sent me. I'm Jera of the first tribe I took on the mission as a mercenary." According to what he said, the constellation is the first race to worship the blade of the bitch Dian, and he also has a pact with a constellation. Jera proudly boasted, "If I had another 30 seconds, the result of this fight would have been different." Hearing this guy speak so arrogantly made Kim Joo-hyuk's head hurt. He was about to let him go if he showed some remorse. But Kim Joo-hyuk reconsidered and decided it was better to just shut him up. He said then immediately snapped the guy's jaw back into place. First tribe, that name sounds familiar, Kim Joo-hyuk thought. He immediately searched online. A stream of hot news articles appeared, most of which were not very pleasant. Kim Joo-hyuk was quite pissed off, so he didn't bother looking for notes anymore and decided to settle the score with that damn Rockdil. To teach the bastard a lesson, he came up with a bold idea. In this day and age, technology should be used, not just brute strength. Luckily, he had recorded the entire confession of Jera earlier, so now all he had to do was find a place to post it. And the game would be easy. "You guys think you're safe when you mess with me." Kim Joo-hyuk immediately called his Aunt Lilia for help, and she thought he was calling to ask if he could be her assistant. But Kim Joo-hyuk immediately interrupted her thoughts. The next day, the news about the Bentrick family's plot to kill a student in Valhalla quickly became a hot topic. The content was manipulated, but in essence it still centered on the Bentrick family and Rock, the axe-bearer of netizens, which made fans obsessively discuss the drama non-stop. Looking at the result he had created, Kim Joo-hyuk smiled in satisfaction. This was the face of modern warfare. Bacha also had to praise him, saying that although he was a person who lived 300 years ago, he had adapted to modern culture faster than lightning. In the past, when Kim Joo-hyuk had just reincarnated, he had faced many difficulties. But he focused on getting familiar with everything by browsing through forums and reading the news, which is why he was so savvy now. After reading all the articles that had just been published, Kim Joo-hyuk sighed in frustration and muttered, "What a pity. I just wanted to target Rockdil, but all the reporters went ahead and posted this and attacked the Bentrick family." What he didn't expect was that because of this, the head of the family had to hold a press conference to publicly apologize. She expressed sincere remorse but denied any wrongdoing and refused to take responsibility, claiming she felt guilty and promised to visit the victim and apologize in person with no further explanation. Rockdil watched the news with a face as green as a frog. Just at that moment, his father called to inform him that he had to return to the country immediately, as ordered by the family. The next day, for personal gain, Jera sold himself out, claiming responsibility for the incident in place of that bastard. He was transported like cargo on a prisoner ship across the Pacific Ocean to a prison tower, a facility created by an S-class constellation, where it was said that the prison could turn fake contracts into normal humans. Jera, feeling pleased, thought to himself that all he needed to do was keep his mouth shut and let Rockdil stay in the family. If he succeeded, his sentence would be reduced to 5 years, but if not, it would be disastrous. 5 years was nothing. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a chilling voice from beside him. It was a hideous face, and before Jera could look up, his head was chopped off, not even leaving a chance for his final words. At the Bentrick family mansion, Rockdil Eden's father and his son were bowing in front of the person opposite them. "Rockdil, what are you going to do now?" she asked. The two quickly bowed and apologized, but that wasn't enough to calm the family head's fury.